There we go. Hey,
We
Ben.
both are live.
Right. She's going backstage. Sort of like being on the Johnny Carson show or Ed Sullivan or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of minutes here before we're actually supposed to start. So what time are you there?
Just before 6 a.m.
Okay. Your sound's a little bit low.
All right. How's that?
That's better.
I can put the microphone right in front of me. There we go.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, what fun.
Yep.
This would be great to interview you. How'd your day go yesterday?
I'm trying to remember what we did. I always forget. So yeah, I feel like I was feeling pretty happy by the end of the day. When I was playing football a couple of nights ago, I injured my back, so it's just a muscle. So I went to bed really early last night, so I'm feeling all right now.
Football as in soccer or as in rugby?
No, rugby. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't play soccer. That would be embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, you're about the right size for rugby, I would say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get in your way.
Yeah, I'm getting too old for it, I think. I don't bounce back anymore. I just hit the ground hard. Yep.
So I'm thinking maybe we'll start with just introduce each other and then maybe do a quick check-in. It's just sort of modeling what we do.
Yep.
And then we'll launch into getting to know
Sounds
you.
good to me.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like your mom's enjoying the new computer.
Oh, almost. We haven't. I had a screen and somebody gave it to us, one of my friends, and then I plugged it in and it had been smashed. So I think one of the little kids, one of my nephews, because it was in my son's room for a while, I think they must have hit it with something or something like that. So I had to order another screen, but that's okay. Yeah, but it will be good. It works.
Fantastic. Well, glad that's worked out. See, I've got about 3:55 here.
Yeah, we are a bit early still.
So tell me, what's the latest in Australia on lockdowns and all that? Have they loosened up a good bit or not?
Yeah, everything's back to normal here in Queensland. I don't know about the other states. I think the other states opened up a little bit earlier than Queensland even. So, yeah, I'm not sure about flying in and out, but my friend in our homeschool group, they just went to Vietnam. So I think it depends on the other country now and all that sort of stuff. So, I feel like it's getting back to normal.
So could you go out and get a job if you wanted to? I mean, could you be hired for something?
Yeah, if they don't talk about it. Yeah. If they don't ask questions about seeing a passport or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It just depends who you work for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about your mom? Because I know she couldn't work at the school for that reason.
Yeah. So she got another job cleaning. So cleaning doctor's surgeries. How funny is that, right? A bit ironic that you can't work at a school because you don't have a passport, but you can clean doctor's surgeries. Yeah. But yeah, it's they still have a state of emergency here, so they can still do whatever they want. That's the problem. So yeah, it's still playing it by ear, but it has been slowing down all of that stuff, and I haven't heard anything about it for a long time. So it seems pretty good.
Good. Do you think your mom would like to go back to the school to work, or is she happy with what she's doing?
I don't know. I think she would, but she'd have to reapply. They're not giving people jobs back. So, yeah, I think they're just getting on new people now. So,
it seemed like she enjoyed that a lot. I just was wondering.
Yeah. Actually, I think she talked about it. Maybe not, because I don't know. Life's a fair bit different now because of homeschooling and stuff like that. So, yeah, maybe she wouldn't.
Well, she's a natural teacher, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And how's your wife adapting to living in Aussie land? How's that working out for her?
Yeah, it's been a bit tough because her job has been like what she always did. She's a teacher, and so coming here and not having to go out every single day, and usually they don't get home until like 6 p.m. because school days in Thailand are really long. School usually starts at 8, so they get in there at 7:30, and then they don't get home until 6 o'clock in the afternoon or the evening. So she's just trying to figure out how to live life without having to be running around all the time. I actually think that's the biggest problem for her. It's not being in Australia. It's that. Yeah.
So adapting the culture hasn't been too difficult.
Well, she's pretty good at it. Like she's speaking English and understands how we do things, and Australia is a little bit different, like more rules and stuff, yes. But you can choose to follow them or not. But yeah, like in Thailand, everything's like just do whatever you want, pretty much. For Thai people, it's pretty awesome. So that's a little bit different. Like we tried to make Thai ice cream, and then we looked into how to make it, how to get all the right licenses and everything, and it's just impossible. Like there are, like for a small business, it's like it's I don't know, just the fees for the government, like $5,000 annually, and then all this sort of stuff, and I don't know, just to get accreditation and then make your kitchen perfect how they want it to be. And so yeah, I don't know. She was disappointed in that, because in Thailand, if you want to do something, you just do it. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, let us get started. It's 4:00 on the East Coast, and it is my privilege to be interviewing Ben Hamilton. Been a good friend for a number of years now, and so I'm excited to do that. Ben is on the call from Australia. I'm in Florida right now, and so it's like us in Luke 10 to take some time to check in first. Just to sort of map out where we're going. I'm going to interview Ben and just have him share a good bit about his own story in general, and then more specifically his involvement with Luke 10. So I think that you guys will find that to be really interesting. But like I said, it's like us to check in, to start with connecting on a heart level with each other. So are you set to go on that, or you want me to go first? What would you like?
Sure, I can go first.
Okay.
So I'm checking in today. Like I only woke up just now, so it's this morning. I'm not exactly sure. Like I'm just feeling a little bit physically under the weather. I started getting a cough yesterday, and my back's really sore. So it's that's where I'm starting off today. I'm feeling happy about doing this and joyful and having a chat, and so that's the good thing about like chatting with people online and doing Luke 10 stuff online, is it brings you back to joy, and that's how I feel at the moment. So yeah, I'm in.
Outstanding. Yeah, and we should mention that although it's 4 p.m. On the East Coast here, it is what time in Australia?
6 a.m.
6 a.m. Yeah. So yeah. We always have lots of calculating to do when we try to figure out, So it's Tuesday here, and it's like Wednesday there, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. My brain just doesn't adapt to that very well. I am checking in. Very thankful today about a couple of things. One is I went to see one of my doctors this morning. Dr. Heather is her name. She's a pain management specialist. And about 10 years ago, I did a partial tear of my Achilles playing tennis. I'm out there playing tennis, and all of a sudden I feel this pop, and just really painful. And over 10 years, I've tried everything that you can imagine to try to get that thing healed up, but it just was a chronic injury. And I finally got to the place where I really couldn't keep playing tennis. Tried physical therapy, a bunch of stuff. And finally got in touch with Dr. Heather, who does something called PRP, plasma rich something, I don't know. But anyway, it's a number of injections in my heel about 2 months ago. And I could report to her today that probably 80 or 90% of the time I feel no pain in my Achilles. I'm just thrilled. with that. I'm going to start physical therapy probably the next week to kind of just get everything back in shape, with the idea of I want to end up back on the tennis court within a couple of months. So long-standing thing. I didn't know if we'd ever get this thing healed, and I'm just so delighted that we found that. So that's one thing that I'm very thankful about. And the second thing is to be talking to Ben, because I knew Ben back when, early on in his connection with Luke 10, and so he'll get to share with you about that. But puts a big smile on my face when I think about all that God has done in you and then through you and all the people that you're influencing. So this is a treat to be able to do this. So let's start. Again, we've got your name. We got tell us where you are in Australia. Tell us a little bit about your family and the kind of work that you do.
Yeah. So I'm in Brisbane, Australia. That's in Queensland, northeastern state, and but down the bottom of the state. Once you go up north, there's less places. So I just got here from Thailand in August last year. I've been there for 20 years or so. But so what was the next one? About what else do I do?
Family. Tell us about your family.
Family. Yeah, sorry. I was going to write down those things when you said them, but I thought, I'll remember, but I didn't. So my family, I have my wife and I have my 2 kids. So my wife's name is Nung and she's Thai. My son, Toby, he's 15. He's Thai, I suppose. They're all born in Thailand, but he is Australian citizen, is like my daughter. And my daughter Jessica, she's just turned 10. So yeah, I have been in Thailand for 20 years. I moved there when I was 17, and something like that anyway, back and forth from 17. And then I fell in love with it. I still love Thailand, but things changed and made it so not for them, because Thai people have the freedom as usual, but the government has been changing a bit. So I had to, it was becoming really difficult for me just to be there. So we decided to leave a long time before we were actually able to, and then trying to deal with all that stuff and then make it here, and right in the middle of everything last year in 2021. And finally we made it here. And the work that I do is like, I pretty much, I guess you could say that I work for Luke 10, but I like facilitate leader teams. I train people in facilitating intro calls, church one-on-ones, and leader teams. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of facilitating a lot of intro calls and church one-on-ones. So I'm starting to add some more leader teams to my list that I'm already doing. So I don't get paid by Luke 10. I get paid by Pay It Forward, and that is the way that we get people work in Luke 10. And it's slowly but surely becoming something that I do a lot of. And I also do your social media, John. So it's been really fun. So TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. I'm learning how to do that really well now. So it's been really great, just expanding the things that I do with Luke 10. And it's really fulfilling.
So we'll dig into that a little bit more in a minute. But take us back. You grew up in Australia, and at the age of 17, you went to Thailand. Talk about that. Why did you make that move?
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of things that sort of went into that. I love Thailand, and the Thai people are great. The only thing I don't like is Thai bureaucracy, but who likes any bureaucracy? So it's I initially went there because one of our friends was family friends from when we were kids. They were going to Thailand, and they hooked us up with this group of people, and we signed up. Mum and I, we decided to go. Hadn't been overseas, didn't know what Thailand was at all, and those friends, they actually pulled out of the group, so we ended up going, just the both of us, and that group, I don't know, maybe 10 people or more or so, something like that. But they went around to orphanages and went to a bunch of different cities in Thailand and just visited orphanages and just things like that. And one of the orphanages that I went to that we visit was Ban Meta. That was in Lomsak. That's where it's in the province of Phetchabun. It's in central Thailand. And we decided to, like, we just loved it. We loved Thailand altogether, but also Ban Meta. It was a different and special place. So I think it was probably that trip that I sort of fell in love with Thailand, and I excuse me. It became something that we did. I can't remember if I must have gone there with school, because Mum also worked at my school, and she would take trips to Thailand every year. So the school would send kids there. So I think we must have gone 3 or 4 times in between when the first trip I went. The first trip I went there was 2000, so 22 years ago. But so after that, I went with as many times as possible, and just went with school a lot and visited all these places again. And because Mum was sort of running the trips. But after that, like, I always struggled at school. I had a problem with, and it's no different now, a problem with people who tell me what to do in any capacity. So it's still the same. But I don't mind if people ask me to do things. It's a different thing, but people tell me to do things and I don't like it. So I didn't do well at school. I struggled like doing the work even. I remember one specific time when I had a great teacher. His name was Doug Braden, and he was a maths teacher. And he's like, I'm going to help you get through this math test. And I studied a lot. I really, really tried. And after that, I still failed. Then I thought, no point, not doing that again. So I just didn't bother. So I struggled with school. I got in trouble a lot because I didn't like being told what to do. And then eventually I got expelled. And I had 6 months before I started going to agricultural college. There's a famous ag college in Australia called Tokal. It's in New South Wales. It's down south a bit. But I wanted to go there, and I had 6 months to spare in between. And Mum tells it that I wanted to go, but I don't remember exactly all the details. But I just wanted to go back to Thailand. So I went back to that orphanage, Ban Meta, and that's where I stayed for 6 or so months. And then I learned to speak Thai really easily. It just happened. In those 6 months, I could speak Thai. And I didn't study or anything. I just been around the people, because you just hang around. There was no other foreign people there at the time. Like, there was teams visiting every now and then, but I just hung out with them. Never had the opportunity to speak English. So I just picked up Thai that first 6 months, and then fell in love with it. After that, that's when I met my wife then. She worked at the school that was attached to the orphanage, and I used to drive the school bus. So even this, like, you can't do anything like this in Australia, but they weren't school buses. They're like small trucks in the States, or we call them utes in Australia, with sometimes they sit directly in the bed and sometimes they put seats in it. So I would take the kids home in the school bus, and she would sit next to me and tell me where to stop. So that's how I got to know her. And after that, I just decided that I'm coming back. I went to college for 2 years. Finished that. It was really easy for me because it's something that I wanted to do. It's funny that when you want to do it, it's easy. But yeah. And I finished that, and then came straight back to Thailand in 2004. So after that, we got married in 2005, and then I just was there ever since. So it sort of hooked me back in the day, 20-something years ago, and then I never left it. Slowly but surely, Thailand used to be really, really free. And to some extent, for Thai people, it still is, but they're sort of cracking down on the foreign people now, just making it like making it a lot of hoops you have to jump through just to be there. And even with a Thai wife, there's no such thing as residency, really, no such thing as citizenship. So I had to live on a visa, and they could screw with you as much as they wanted to, and they sort of did that. So yeah, ended up having to pay lots of bribes and just to be able to stay there. And
sure.
Yeah, I didn't like doing that. Yeah.
Good. Great story. I think you're a guy made for adventure. So First of all, let me say if there are folks that are watching or viewing, we'd love it if you have questions you'd like to ask about Ben to get to know him and his involvement with Luke 10. There's a chat box down there, so feel free to write questions that you have. So Ben, could you in just a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes maybe, give us a quick overview of your spiritual journey? What
Yeah.
did that look like?
Yeah. So I grew up as a Christian in a Christian family. Went to church, traditional church, the whole time. I never liked it. It just never made sense to me. And then we had a really good group of people I was born in a town called Tamworth, and that's a country town in New South Wales. And we had really good friends there. And so church was like, it made sense there a little bit. But then after that, we never really found that again in traditional churches when we moved up north to Brisbane. So I believed in God, and I had a relationship with him, talked to him. I remember thinking about God all the time. But I thought I was always feeling bad about the things that I did and didn't do. So I had a lot of guilt surrounding whatever that was. So even just reading the Bible, I need to read the Bible. I don't do it enough. And I was guilty, all that sort of, didn't know how to do anything. So that was basically my life, not feeling good enough with God. And because I thought he would be angry at the things that I had done and thought and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So after a while, we found Luke 10 when we were in Thailand, and my mum found it, connected with you online back in, it got to be at least almost 10 years ago now, probably. At least 8, yeah. And then, she sort of got really excited about it because we'd left our church in Thailand, our traditional church, because they didn't want to do anything in the community. So we're like, oh, well, we'll just get out of here then. And then we started doing a house church and didn't know what to do. So mum found Church 101. She did it. And then she wanted me to do it. And I wasn't super interested in it. I'm just like, oh, no, it's just another thing. And then eventually it caught hold of me somehow. I had gone through it and done it a bit. And then eventually, like, I don't know what it was, but because I must have sort of done Church 101 with her. We'd done it at church and stuff. And I understood the basic principles. And then that she asked me to join the leader team. And I think she'd been with you guys for a while, a year or maybe more. And then I joined the leader team, and that's where it really started. It changed my life from there. It just started happening in real life. Like, I didn't have to do anything. I thought there's no way that I would want to join this leader team with a bunch of old Americans. That's what I thought.
Let me go back just a second, and we'll dig more into that. And I just want to comment on the story with your mother, Jen. And again, it was 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I don't know exactly. And out of the blue, I get this email from this lady in Australia who I'd never heard of, never met. And she found something online about Luke 10 and wanted to know more about that. And so I think I sent her Church 101, which was in a very primitive version at that point, probably just some PDF files. And bless her heart, talk about being motivated. She went through all of that and just loved it. And so I think of Jen as just sort of a classic tend to be answer. We'd been praying Luke 10, verse 2, part B, beseech the Lord of the harvest, send forth workers. And here, just, God sends you people from all over the place, just in ways and times that are just unexpected. And so, again, here's this lady. And so she goes to Church 101 and wants to talk about it. We have some conversations. I was just going back recently to look at one of the first, I think we'd call them Google Hangouts back then, that we actually recorded, kind of grainy and dark. And but her heart was just, I just loved her immediately. And we were just starting the idea of leader teams back then. So I invited her to be on one. And like you said, she was on there for a while. Probably before you got involved. But talk a little bit more about, your mother's kind of saying, come on, Ben, I want you to be on this leader team. And I remember those early times. I thought, I wonder what he's thinking about all this. So what was it about that, do you think, that captured your heart and made you feel like, hey, this is something that I want to do?
Yeah, so I owned a gym in Thailand, and that's what I was doing when this all happened. Running that. So I remember specifically sitting in the office there and thinking about it and reading it a little bit. And I remember a day when that happened. And then, so when I started, I think Mum just said, "Oh, it'll probably be a good idea if you jump on a leader team." And I was reluctant. And then I don't know, it must have been the very first one that sort of caught me. Um, I, I just kept, I don't remember it really, but I remember sort of the feeling of really liking it, but then at the same time not wanting to do it. So it was like at the beginning, I was like, oh, it's coming back up to the leader team time again. I remember that for a little while. I don't want to do it, but I like it, and like I knew that wanted to keep doing it, and then that sort of I just kept doing it. I'm that sort of person where if I sat to say I'm going to do something, then I'm just going to keep doing it. So maybe that was a bit what held me there, but I just kept on doing it and eventually started loving it, and it started becoming like, oh, 2 weeks is not enough. And then as soon as the idea of being able to facilitate came up, train to facilitate, I just signed up for everything straight away, not really knowing what it was. And then I just sort of kept going from there. And yeah, it did totally change everything. Yeah.
So you heard about facilitator training,
Yeah.
and signed up for it, not quite knowing what you were getting into.
Yeah.
What are your early memories of what that was like, going through that training?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember it. So I remember because at the time it was Tony doing everything. I think it was like the first one I remember Larry Silver did it. I'm not sure if so he was a little bit in front of me. So I think we're just figuring it out back then. And
Yeah.
I remember being really nervous about it because I felt like there was so much stuff that I had to learn and I'm not good at that. So I know that when I sort of got into leader team facilitating really, really quickly. I remember just jumping through intro call to Church 101. And at the time, I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff means, like intro call. And because I didn't do it. I didn't do intro call. I sort of did Church 101. And then I didn't really do Church 101 either. I just sort of did it with Mum and then sort of straight into a leader team. It was confusing to me. And because when the email came, I remember clicking on all of them. Which training do you want to do? And I clicked all of them. And I sort of got put straight into everything. And it just sort of played out like that, just bit by bit, bit by bit. And one thing that Tony said to me that really changed everything for me was she said to me that I'm enough as I am. And that's good enough it's good enough. Yeah. So you don't have to be anything more than what you are right now. And that sort of changed anything. And it made total sense to me. And it makes me probably no other organization or community of people would be like that. You always have to be more than you are. But this one is, and you're enough as you are and just see what happens. And I love that. So that's sort of the way I am. I love just having an experimenting and seeing what happens. And slowly but surely moved through it all. And now I train people to facilitate. So I'm not sure how many years it's been, but a few.
Well, you've gone on. So there's facilitator training, and then you've gone on to become a trainer, and you're being in the training process. So let's dig into those a little bit. If somebody said, so what happens in facilitator training? If I signed up for facilitator training, what could I expect? What would be happening?
Yeah. So we've got the 3 stages. Intro to Church 101. That's the first one. So that's just a one-off call. I think it's really good how it works like that. So you just get a one-off call, and then you get like a sort of like a script, and you can work through it. But it's a script that can be also, you can be Jesus led at the same time. and yeah, so I would, if I'm training someone, I'm actually doing a couple people right now on intro call. So we'll have an initial call, the 2 of us. I just did it yesterday, so I can remember really clearly. We have our initial call, and we start going through the material and how they will have that call with the person on the intro call. Just step by step, we just go through it. Any questions that they have, we just talk about anything that they want to know, anything that's confusing, or if they understand, we just keep moving forward. And so once the initial debrief or chat that we have, then they will sign up and get an intro call, and then they will get that intro call with somebody. They will record that because they have to send it to me. I'll watch that video, then we debrief that video. The way I explained the debrief yesterday is it's interesting because, like, when you think about someone who's training you, you think that they would be the one who makes the decision. So he said to me yesterday, so if you think that I'm good enough, then I'll get through. I was like, it's sort of not really like that. It's sort of like, you'll know and I'll know and we'll all know together, because Jesus will lead us if we want to do one more, if we want to, or if you need more, or if you're ready to be listed and go through to Church 101 Facilitator. So it's really cool. It really works well how we can bring Jesus into it, and he lets us know where we need to be doing things. So
there's sort of that neat blend of there's structure, there's process, and at the same time freedom and interaction with the Holy Spirit in the process. So, and I want to just take time to walk through that again, just what you shared, for people who maybe have not been through facilitator training, just to kind of paint the picture. And you tell me if I'm missing anything. So somebody signs up for facilitator training. I want to be in that, want to do that. The first step is we're going to send you a video of somebody facilitating an intro call, right?
Yep.
And so if I'm the person being trained, I would watch that video. You'd give me a script, and then we would talk about the video that I've just seen. We'd sort of talk what that was like. And then you would give me, there'd be a person that has approached Luke 10 and said, I want to go through Church 101. And the first step is doing this intro call, this introduction call. And so you would connect me with that person, and I would follow the script and take them through the intro call, and talk about the purpose of the intro call. What are we trying to accomplish in that?
Yeah, okay. So we're trying to let people understand or see whether or not they would like to do Church 101. So Church 101 is a bit more of it's longer. It takes more time. So it's about 6 weeks, and it's once every week for an hour for 6 weeks. Plus you need to go through some of the information and learn about it a bit. So it takes a lot more time. So we're trying to find out, firstly, if they want to do it, and secondly, if they're feeling Jesus is leading them into that. So they may not necessarily feel like they want to do it, but they understand very clearly that Jesus wants them to do it. So I would explain that as how I got into it all. Yeah.
We're not trying to convince people or talk them into it. We're trying to find out what's in their heart. Is this something that the Lord has put in your heart, so that it really is an internal motivation, not sort of an external thing? So you give me a person to take through the intro call, which is always the scariest part when people are just starting out, like, what if I get this wrong?
Yep.
But they do it, and they record that call.
Yep.
And then you watch their recording and debrief it with them. What's the purpose of that? Why do you do that?
So we're just trying to look at or reflect on the things that we do. So in the debrief, it's just questions, really. So it's not like I'm sitting there being really critical and telling you,
wrong, and you did that wrong.
Yeah. We do everything really gently. So maybe you do something massively wrong, but it's an experiment. So we are all learning the whole way through. So it's me just asking questions of you, and then you sort of answer everything yourself with Jesus. So it's not like, I don't tell you what you have done or right or wrong. Jesus will tell you. And I find that so many times, because I write down what I think might need to change, something that you might need to start thinking about more. And then a lot of times everybody just picks it up on their own. I find that a lot, that people are like, oh, I did this, but I know that I shouldn't have. It's really cool. It's an awesome process. And there's a debrief. After you finish the call, you fill out a little form, and it helps you like start thinking about that as well. So it's not a scary thing at all. And I was just trying to explain that yesterday, and to the person that was starting, and it's a really fun experience to work your way through it, and it just opens your eyes to really what you do, who you are, and it's really fun. Yeah.
I sort of say, I mean, Tony Daniels is responsible for this process. Again, I kind of come up with an initial form of Church 101, but she saw the value of doing an intro call at the beginning, which I think is genius, and then this process of training. So see it, read it, watch the video, do it, and then have somebody watch the video and debrief you on that. It is the best learning process I've ever seen. This far surpasses anything that I did way back in seminary. So I just am a great believer in what this is about. And what we're training people to do is to be a facilitator. So talk a little bit about that. What that word facilitator, what does that mean? And what are people going to learn how to do if they're training as a facilitator?
I think that maybe I've been listening to your podcast. I have been listening to your podcast a lot, but the way I would explain this is it's training. A facilitator is being trained to pay attention. So I'm being trained to notice things. The reason I'm saying that is because I didn't notice anything before. And like, I didn't see anything the way that people were, just straight over the top of my head. And it makes you notice how people are, how the things that they're trying to say, because we're always restating. So as a facilitator, I would say that you are becoming, you're learning how to pay attention and pay attention to God and Jesus, as well as other people at the same time. And then we're learning to dig deeper into things by asking the gentle, curious questions. So we're also trying to get through the material, but it sort of becomes secondary to the relationship. And that's why I love the outline that we get as a facilitator, because you have this outline and it makes it so you don't have to worry about it. So if you want, you can follow it exactly. And we try to follow it exactly, but like there's space for real relationships in all of that. And there's not how like, I don't think that is an easy thing to really do, like have space for relationships, but also get through the material. So that's why the material becomes secondary to relationships. If we have to spend time like digging in deep, asking these general curious questions, dealing with heavy emotions, then we do that. And then the information like doesn't matter.
That's really well said. That's really well. And again, it's such a radically different process from what I think so much of Christian training has been, which is almost entirely content oriented. So relationships are very secondary. And we kind of flip that on its head. There is a place for content and principles and all the rest, but it really starts with a relational component. So as you said, there are 3 stages to facilitator training. We just talked about the first one, which is just facilitating an intro call. Gives people a chance to kind of get their feet wet, try it out once, and then they can go on to stage 2, which is facilitating what?
So with intro calls, it does depend on you and Jesus if you feel like you're up to doing a Church 101 yet. So you get to choose. It's not like finish one straight onto it. So if you want to do 4 or 5 intro calls first, then that's possible. You can do it at your pace. So after that, it's Church 101. It's a lot more intense, as in it's 6 weeks, every single 1 day a week that you actually have to facilitate a call. And not only do you have to facilitate that call, you have to record it, send it to me, I watch it, then we debrief every week before the next call, so we can see what's happening. It's a lot more intense, and you have to have at least 2 hours where you can do the group as well as debrief with your trainer. So
there's lots of repetition in order to really help these become skills that become natural for you, like you said, of paying attention, of educing things from people. And helping them. And I find that it's often a little bit difficult for people who've been Christians for a long time or Christian leaders, because they are so used to telling a lot, teaching a lot, giving lots of information. And part of what we're doing is helping them to dial back on that and learn how to pay attention, ask questions, draw things out of people, which is a really powerful way of helping people grow. But it's different from a lot of our backgrounds.
Yes, totally. We always automatically. I like the. Something else jumped into my head before, but I remember like you're just talking about how we change like without having to do anything. The word I use, I remember you telling me this specifically, but you said, "Oh, I didn't do anything. It's just become automatic."
Yeah.
And then you said, "Oh, it's spontaneous. It's just, you get this spontaneous change." And that's the best thing about this. Like I don't have to do anything. I just spontaneously change.
Just
I love the way that. Yeah, I love the way that God does that. So, what was the next step? I'm sorry, I had to. The next question.
So we've got first step is intro call. Second step
Yep.
is the 6 weeks of Church 101. Again, lots
Yep.
of repetition, same kinds of things. Things are beginning to be a new normal for the people
Yes.
training. And then the third stage of training is what?
Yeah. So once you finish the Church 101, usually you will do a couple at least, because it's so much more to it. But we're doing it together. We're experimenting together. I like the phrase, John, that you use, building the plan in flight. It makes so much sense for this. That's exactly what we're doing. And so there's no pressure. We can just keep on going as long as we need to. And then after that, it's a leader team facilitator. I feel like Church 101 is much more difficult because there's so much more to it. But a leader team there's more to it because it's not just like following a process anymore. Because we get together, we meet 2 times a month, every 2 weeks, and it's the same people or could be for many, many years. So that leader team that I first joined with you had been going for a really long time. I think it ended up going for like probably 8 or 9 years. And I have some leader teams the people have sort of changed around a bit, but that have been going for 5 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. So there's a lot more to it. It sort of comes more into the realm of coaching a little bit, because we have to dig deep into things and deal with heavy emotions, deal with real life. In Church 101, maybe that might not happen, but sometimes it does. Yeah. So it becomes, there's more difficult things to deal with inside of that leader team as a facilitator, I mean. And yeah, so the training sort of steps up a lot from there and it's more difficult, as in it takes more time. Yeah.
I think that the discipling goes deeper. It's the context that allows us to really get to know one another in a sort of a full sort of way over time. And over time, as we're in a relationship, issues come up, things come up. What about my kids? What about my marriage? What about work? What about whatever? So it's not like we have this whole discipleship program laid out with all the steps and all that sort of stuff. There is a track to run on, but there's a lot of flexibility to pay attention to what's happening along the way. And I think it's a really fun way to do that. So
yeah. Once you get into it, I feel like leader team for me now is like a safe space for me. I just get to go there, be totally real. Everybody in the group gets to be totally real with each other. And then we can sort of like dig into life and deal with each other's problems and deal with each other's like happinesses and everything that's happening. We're just like working through it together. So once you've been in it for a while as a facilitator, it becomes really fun and not so nerve-wracking. Yeah.
And we always start with checking in. So we're kind of connecting on a heart level at the very beginning. All right. So here's a tough question for you. So I'm thinking back to when you first popped on that first leader team call, and we think, what, 7 years ago, 8 years ago? What do you think?
Yeah. Could be something like that.
We should go back.
I have no idea. Yeah.
And you're kind of there. It's like, I kind of want to be here. I kind of don't, and I'm not sure. And, I don't know what this is and all the rest. So from that point till now, this is just a guess. What's your best guess as to how many Church 101 groups you have facilitated?
Yeah. Yeah. It would be even hard to guess. I don't know. Maybe back when COVID started happening, we got a lot of Church 101s in Australia. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we almost did 20 of them. So, and I sort of slowed down for a bit in between, but now I'm doing some more. So probably not 100, but 50, at least 50.
That's amazing. What is that like to think about, that you have taken, let's say 50 groups of people through Church 101. What's that like when you think about that?
It's funny because I don't think about that. It's like right off the cuff here. So it's uh it's pretty cool, isn't it, that we have the opportunity to affect so many different people. And sometimes you can think that the things that we do mean nothing, but it certainly means a lot. Like, and I remember some people do it and then they don't really join Luke 10, and that's cool. And
Yeah.
I know that I know a lot of people who sort of didn't continue on in Australia. They just sort of doing their own thing. So I do remember it, and I know that it really affects them a lot. It helps them a lot. So it gives you the tools to keep going. But from my experience, if you don't continue into a leader team of some kind, or something similar, then you sort of slip away. You sort of slip away a little bit, and I've seen that quite a bit. But it is pretty cool to just, I guess, even now I'm thinking about all of the groups of people that I've done that I don't have any connection with anymore, and it's pretty cool. Like, there's a few people that are popping into my mind that I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about them for a while, and I did Church 101 with them, and we got to know each other really well. It's funny how Church 101 it does, like, it's the beginning of really knowing people, and you don't actually get to meet them in real life most of the time,
Yeah.
but you really know each other. So yeah, it feels really awesome.
Yeah. So just for a second, name some of the countries that are represented in the people that you've taken through Church 101.
Yeah, so Australia and America, two obvious ones. Malaysia. I know there's some South American countries that I can't remember the names of. There were some people there that I did Church 101 with. And I trained people. I was training people who are facilitating Church 101 groups in Lebanon and England and Spain. So a lot of my Church 101 groups have been Australia, America, and a bit different places around the world. But I've been able to watch a lot of people in other countries as well as I've been a trainer. Yeah. So lots of different countries, and I just can't remember them all at the moment.
Pretty amazing. Here's this young guy in Thailand, this Aussie in Thailand, kind of minding his own business, and he gets connected, and all of a sudden God has given you literally a global disciple making ministry.
Yeah.
What's that feel like to you when you think about that?
It feels really great, but it's something that the reason that I dug into and just kept going into Luke 10 is because that's what I felt like God wanted me to do. So I just kept going. And then I thought, as I was going to come back to Australia, that some things would happen in real life. And it has, to a small extent, but he's wanting me to go in even deeper. So it's funny because I literally have never thought of, I've thought about it sometimes, but I'm just like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. But it is really amazing that you can just touch and meet so many people. Like I did a Church 101 an intro call with a group of people maybe a month ago now. And they're just in rural US somewhere. I can't remember the state, but they just were able to connect with people, and they were just so thankful for that because their house is, like, they said they don't go to church very often because it's like an hour and a half away. And even that, like, they could almost be more cut off than other people, like in these rural places. So it's just great, the opportunity that I've had, and the change that God has been able to spontaneously give me in the process. Wonderful. Yeah.
So you learned how to be a facilitator, and then you decided to take the next step, which is to become a trainer. Talk about that. What's a Luke 10 trainer? How does that happen?
Yeah, so you have to go through intro Church 101 and be in a leader team. That's all. And then if you feel like Jesus is leading you to the next step of becoming a trainer, then you can do that. So the first step is becoming a trainer for intro calls. And you just do that a little while until you feel like, and we feel like that you can keep doing that. And then, so this is a fairly new process within Luke 10. we're still like working out the kinks. It's not like the facilitated groups anymore. Becoming a facilitator, it's all laid out now.
Yep.
There's a plan, but becoming a trainer is still being built while we're flying. So at the moment, I'm not listed as a leader team, so I don't train people for leader teams yet. I have a bit, so I'm sort of at that next step for leader teams now. So, but I train facilitators for intro calls and church 101s all the time. And there's only a few of us. I think there's only 4 of us really now that are doing this next step. Yeah.
So there are total 4 trainers right now in Luke 10.
Yeah.
And I think some other people that are maybe
almost there. Yeah.
About it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this whole process again of debriefing, and you're being trained as a trainer.
Yep.
You have to record calls.
Yep.
And who watches those calls?
Tony. So she has a lot of stuff in the background with all the trainers as well. So it's the exact same process of, so when I train, I watch their video, then I'll debrief with them and record that at the same time with their permission, pass it on to Tony. She lets us know what we're doing right and wrong. And sometimes we do a call and sometimes just send through the videos, but a video of her response. But yeah, the further in you go, it becomes a bit more complicated. It takes a lot of time. Like there's a lot of back and forth, and yeah, it takes time.
Can you think of maybe 1 or 2 things that you feel like you have learned as you're going through the trainer training, things that you're doing differently or trying to focus on or being aware of? Anything that comes to mind along that line?
Yeah. So I had a really interesting time when I was training as a leader team facilitator, and it was a really tough group, a lot of drama, a lot of crazy things happen. So the thing that just jumped into my mind that is being okay with being uncomfortable. I remember the conversation I had with Tony. She's like, "Oh, what's the worst thing that's going to happen when you're uncomfortable?" It's just an uncomfortable situation. So and it sort of made an impact on me. It's just like, yeah, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Sometimes because I would never bring up the things, and it's even in real life, I wouldn't bring up the things that need to be talked about because it's uncomfortable. So just that and the effects that it has on real life, as well as being able to facilitate a group properly, is just being able to talk about uncomfortable things, and then be okay with each other at the end of it, and just that's what sort of jumps into my mind the most. And also like gentle, curious questions, the paying attention, that has made a massive effect on my life. Just being able to see people. Yeah.
Say more about that. What do you mean? Massive effect in your life? What do you mean?
Yeah, but I feel like I went through life. I guess it's probably a bit of narcissism, thinking that I think maybe everyone does this, maybe not, to a different extent. But I would always just push people away because I'm like, well, what's the point? What's the point of like trying at all? Because it's like it's just stupid. So, and then that would stop me from even seeing people at all, because it's sort of like if it doesn't mean anything to me, so they don't give me anything, then what's the point in being like hanging out? So now I can actually see people and know how to ask questions is another thing. Like Mum always said that to me. Oh, if you want to make friends, just ask people questions. I'm like, what? I don't have any questions. I don't care. So it's like just that gentle curiosity, that being able to pay attention so I can actually see people. And I learned all of these skills by getting into facilitating and training people. So it's just, in the leader team, I think I would have got them eventually, but it's just that I'm doing it so much now. And I need to see people. I need to be able to ask these questions and help and like deal with heavy emotions. I need to be able to do that. And I'd have to deal with it almost every week in some sort of group. So I'm just becoming way better at that.
You are. I remember early on, you're kind of saying, well, I don't know what questions to ask. And it's really become, gentle curiosity has become a real strength of yours, I think. So talk for a minute about the things that you have learned, the skills, the relational skills, relational brain skills, we call them. Have you seen that that's affected your marriage and your role as a father?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like I said, I was really, maybe I didn't say, but I was angry. I got expelled and all that sort of stuff. But my whole life was just about me being angry with things. And when I first got married, that was the same. I hadn't changed before that. And then I had my kids, and then I still hadn't changed like I always wanted to. But yeah, it's totally changed everything. I used to get angry at a lot of things. Anything would just set me off. And I guess maybe that's part of the reason that I was in Thailand, because I probably wouldn't have gotten in less trouble for things over there. Like I don't know. It's funny the way that things that you sort of get away with in Thailand. But in Australia, I don't think I would have. I probably would have hooked up with the wrong people. So it was the right thing that needed to happen. And since this, I've been able to, like, I guess, see them, and I have all these different tools, like even just checking in with family. We try and do it every single day, and just that. And as I'm teaching them, it becomes even more clear of how it works. So it's been a struggle with my wife and kids to get all these practices into our life. I don't know why, but it's been really difficult. It's been a long time coming, and we're slowly getting there. And me just being able to ask these little coaching questions, and I've started doing that with you, John, just asking my son, digging deep into the things that he says, and really hearing, and then understanding what that means, and then being able to dig a little bit deeper. And it's cool, the things that come out now. And so I'm not angry. I'm very rarely angry now. I'm not the angry one in the household. So it still comes back every now and then. But yeah. But yeah, it's slowly being totally removed from who I am. And I can just see things, and like it doesn't affect me anymore. I'm just I don't know. It's just it's just, I don't know, just being okay with things the way that they are.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We've talked some already about this idea of pay it forward.
Yep.
So when you train people, when you facilitate groups, you talk to them about that. How do you present that, and what's that been like as to be on the receiving end of pay it forward?
Yeah, so pay it forward is one of those things that is a struggle to get your head around at first. And people in other countries always, like, I remember saying it as well, like, Americans are good at this, but when Australians really suck at it. So it's like, it doesn't work. But we're like, it's not. It's a cultural change for everybody. And I understand that now. And it's like, no, it's not. It's hard for everybody, and everyone's trying to figure it out. But for some reason, Americans are really good at being generous. That's not one thing I noticed about Americans. But pay it forward was a struggle for me to really, because I've done so much in my life. I worked in that orphanage. I worked there for free forever. I never had anything. I've always been like, I don't know, struggling to get by in life always, because I like do things for people. and it's a hard way to, like, as a Christian, like as a missionary. So I was sort of like that. Then you just have to be poor, right? That's the way it's meant to be. And that's what I thought. And not that I'm rich or anything, but just being able to accept things off people has been a big change for me. So even being able to talk about it in a group, it has been a long road to get to be able to talk about it openly and tell people how, like, that's the only way that I make money is if you pay it forward to me. And it's only very recently that I've been able to fully talk about it. So it's been really hard, but it's pretty awesome, really, if we can, like, if there's people who feel like Jesus is leading them into a place like this, and to be supported by the people that they're, I guess, feeding into and helping in it's an amazing concept, really. And so yeah, it's been life-changing, but also a lot of scary changes, but I'm slowly but surely getting the hang of it, I think. Yeah.
Well, and I know that's a challenge, but it's sort of fun to be on that journey with you and to see that little by little the Lord is providing for you guys through that work. Just we say what Jesus said, that the one who does the work deserves to be paid, and this is about changing culture around the world. I mean, maybe it's easier in some ways for Americans to be generous, but changing culture of Christians around the world who often have been burned through churches and through manipulation and all the rest. And so I appreciate you being one of the forerunners in all of that.
Yeah.
I'm noticing down here just I have a couple of comments. And by the way, anybody has a question for Ben, feel free to throw that in here. Tony Daniels at one point says, "Amen, Ben, so love you." And then she noticed your quote where you said, "I'm enough as I am." She's putting that in there. And Brian Patterson says, "Always great to hear your heart, Ben."
Yes, so, Ryan and I are on the leader team together. That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys have become friends.
Yes.
Maybe last thing. When you think about Luke 10 and you think into the future, what do you hope God does? What kind of vision do you have for where this whole thing might go?
Yeah. I like the idea of vibrant families of Jesus in reach of everybody on the planet. I love doing this for Luke 10 and being a facilitator and trainer in Luke 10. I love it so much. It's like I've got another call in an hour or so after this, and I'm excited for it. I love doing it, but it would be so awesome just to have that. Like it's slowly happening in real life around us in our small community. But like I want people to have it because it's like it's just totally freeing. If you can understand this way of life, it just frees you from everything, and you don't have to be tied up in anything. You understand who Jesus is and how he thinks about you, and you're free in so many different ways. And I'm really excited to see it happen in my family. It's been not just my wife and kids, but my brother and sister and their kids, and I'm glad that we get to do that. I'd love to see it more of it in more places in Australia, but it's been slow and hard to go forward. But the thing that I really would be excited for is my family, my extended family, just to be able to get a hold of this, and it's so life changing, and and just the way that we can relate to each other and be real and have these real relationships. It's just really, really awesome. It's just, a lot of the problems I see that we have in our life is just problems with other people. And then if you can do it this way, then you don't have that anymore. It doesn't happen.
Well, it's so true, isn't it? So let me make a final comment. Part of what we're doing through this 67 experiment is inviting people to come and see and watch and get to know people in Luke 10. We'll be interviewing different people. We're inviting you into different kinds of meetings, leader teams, some of the finance circle, general circle throughout the week. So check the schedule. I'll be facilitating the next interview, which will be happening in just a couple of minutes with Jim and Kathy Mellon. But part of what we hope to do is to see Luke 10 fully funded. And we think that in order to do what we think God's calling us to do, we need an additional, I think it's $16,750 per month. So far, we've added, it looks like $201 have been committed on a monthly basis. Also found out that somebody has done a one-time donation of $3,000. So appreciate that. We won't turn away one-time donations. We're happy for that, but we're especially asking people to pray about sort of the monthly kind of thing. That's what we want to see us being fully funded. Ben, thank you so much. I just have loved getting to know you over the years. Glad that we're friends and glad that we're on this journey together. Any closing comment you would like to say to folks that are listening?
No, I just it's been really fun as well. I love just being here and hanging out with different people and getting to know new people. And that's not a normal thing for me. Back in the past, I hated getting to know people, but now I love it. So it's been an awesome ride, I suppose. Yeah.
I love what Jesus has done in your life and in your family. It's just a beautiful thing. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, John. All right. See ya.
Bye for now. And I see Jim and Kathy Mellon right on time. Where are you? I think it's called Backstage. And so you guys know how to get on stage. Do you know how to do that? Well, first of all, here's Hillary. She's going to tell you how.
Yeah. Can you hear?
You can also move them on stage, John, if you want,
do that?
Or I can.
Tell me how I do that?
Sure. So are you in full screen mode or in small screen mode?
Small screen.
All right, great. So right next to the mute all button is a move button with a down arrow.
The move, yes. Okay.
Yeah. And you can click move all on stage.
Okay.
And that will temporarily put me on stage, but that's okay.
That's okay. Looky there. I feel powerful on stage.
Fantastic. All right.
Thanks, Hillary.
You're welcome. I'm going to end the session real quick, and then I'm going to pop back on. That way the session with Ben is recorded and separate, and then our session with Jim and Kathy will be separate as well. We will all still be here. We're just going to temporarily end the live and then start it up again.
Anything I have to do to start it up again?
Nope.
Okay.
I will do that for us.
I can do nothing. I'm good at doing nothing.
All right.